The perfect family can be a powerful illusion, a beautiful facade painted over a reality of secrets and lies, and in the case of Anthony Jones, that illusion didn't just crack. It shattered with the force of a gunshot in the dead of an Alabama night. This is not just a story of a murder. It's a story of a charade so convincing that for years, everyone, from the closest friends to the most seasoned investigators, was completely taken in. It's a story that begins with a vibrant, loving man and ends in a cold, calculated betrayal, all orchestrated by the person who once promised to love him until death did them part. Anthony "Tony" Jones was the kind of man who lit up a room. A successful businessman running a thriving trucking company in the small, tight-knit community of Smith's Station, he was known for his generous spirit, his booming laugh, and his unwavering devotion to his family. In his early 40s, Tony had built a life that was the epitome of the American dream. He had a beautiful wife, a comfortable home, and children he adored. He was a fixture in his community, the sort of reliable, hard-working man you could count on. His wife, Koehler, presented a picture of perfect partnership. They seemed inseparable, a team in both business and life. She was a petite, pretty woman, often described as sweet and soft-spoken, the calm to Tony's energetic storm. To the outside world, they were guerre couple goals long before the term was invented. But behind the curated photos on social media and the harmonious front presented at community barbecues, a different reality was festering. Financial pressures, whispers of infidelity, and a deep-seated resentment were slowly poisoning the well. The night of October 16, 2014, started like any other. Tony was at home with Koehler and their children. The evening was ordinary, unremarkable. But then, just after 11 p.m., a frantic 911 call shattered the silence. Koehler's voice, choked with panic and tears, pleaded with the dispatcher. "Someone's been breaking into our cars. My husband went outside to check. I heard a gunshot. Oh God, please hurry." The sound of her terrified children crying formed a haunting backdrop to her desperate pleas. When deputies from the Lee County Sheriff Enes office arrived at the sprawling property on Lee Road 286, they found a scene of chaos and heartbreak. Tony Jones lay lifeless in his driveway, a single gunshot wound to his chest. Koehler was hysterical, clutching her children, her story clear and terrifying. A brave husband, defending his home from shadowy intruders, had been cut down in a moment of random violence. The investigation launched immediately. The initial theory followed Koehler's narrative. A home invasion, a tragic act of self-sacrifice. Tony was a beloved figure, and the community was gripped with fear and outrage. Who would do this? Who were these criminals brazen enough to kill a man on his own property? Koehler played the part of the grieving widow flawlessly. She gave interviews, her face pale and streaked with tears, speaking of her hero husband. She was surrounded by a cocoon of support from friends and family, all rallying around her in her unimaginable loss. But for lead investigator Sergeant James Hadsell of the Lee County Sheriff's Office, something felt off from the very beginning. It was a feeling, a detective's itch. The crime scene was too clean. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints leading away from the property, no stolen items. The story of the car break-ins felt flimsy, an unnecessary prelude. And then there was the gun, a .38 caliber revolver found lying near Tony's body. It was his own gun, Koehler confirmed. The implication was that Tony had confronted the intruders armed, a struggle ensued, and he was shot with his own weapon. But the placement of the gun didn't quite fit the narrative of a frantic struggle. It looked almost placed. As days turned into weeks, the lack of any viable suspects in the home invasion began to strain the credibility of Koehler's story. The investigation took a quiet, deliberate turn inward, towards the Jones household itself. Detectives began peeling back the layers of the perfect life Tony and Koehler had projected. They discovered significant financial troubles. Tony's trucking business, while successful on the surface, was leveraged to the hilt. More tellingly, they found that Koehler was the sole beneficiary of multiple life insurance policies taken out on Tony, totaling nearly $250,000. A classic motive, but one that needed more than just opportunity and financial gain. It needed proof that the façade was a lie. Then, a break came from an unexpected source: digital forensics. While Koehler presented an image of a devoted wife, her cell phone and computer told a different story entirely. They revealed she was having multiple affairs. One name kept appearing, a man named James Jim Koehler. Their messages were not just romantic. They were explicit, planning, and spoke of a future together. In one particularly damning text, sent just weeks before the murder, Koehler wrote to Koehler, "I'm ready to be with you. I just need to get things in order here first." The investigation now had a clear direction. Koehler Jones and Jim Koehler were placed under intense surveillance. They were seen together frequently, their meetings clandestine but confident. Detectives worked tirelessly to build a timeline, to find a shred of physical evidence that could place Koehler at the scene, or prove collusion. The case was a slow burn, a painstaking assembly of a puzzle where the key pieces were hidden behind a wall of deceit. For nearly 2 years, Tony's family and friends lived in a state of agonizing limbo, watching Koehler play the widow while investigators quietly closed the net. The tension was a palpable thing in Smith Station, a community waiting for the other shoe to drop. It finally dropped on August 4, 2016. In a coordinated early morning raid, Lee County Sheriff's deputies arrested Koehler Jones and Jim Koehler, charging them both with the murder of Anthony Jones. The arrests sent shockwaves through the community. The sweet, grieving widow was a cold-blooded murderer? It seemed impossible. But the evidence, as laid out by the district attorney's office, was compelling. This was not a crime of passion. It was a calculated execution, a contract killing arranged by a wife for the price of a future with her lover and a life insurance payout. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic courtroom battles Alabama had ever seen. The trial began in the spring of 2017, and the courtroom was packed every day. On one side sat Tony's devastated family, forced to relive their nightmare in gruesome detail. On the other sat Koehler Jones, now no longer the weeping widow, but a defendant, her face often a mask of detached calm. The prosecution's case was a methodical dismantling of her alibi. They presented the financial records, the life insurance policies, the sordid text messages that painted a picture of a woman desperate to escape her marriage and start a new life. They called witnesses who testified to hearing Koehler complain about Tony, about the state of their marriage, about wanting out. But the heart of the case was the digital and circumstantial evidence linking Koehler to the crime. Phone records placed his cell phone in the vicinity of the Jones property on the night of the murder. A friend of Koehler's testified that Koehler had confessed to him, saying, "I did it. I shot him. It was supposed to look like a robbery." The defense fought back fiercely. They painted Tony as a difficult man, argued the financial situation wasn't as dire as the prosecution claimed, and attempted to discredit the witnesses against Koehler as criminals looking for a deal. They insisted the entire case was built on speculation and coincidence, that there was no murder weapon, no DNA, no eyewitness that could definitively place Jim Koehler pulling the trigger. Kayla Inez' attorneys maintained her story. She was a terrified wife who heard a gunshot and found her husband dead, a victim herself of a terrible, unsolved crime. For days, the trial was a brutal back and forth, a battle for the soul of the narrative. Was Kayla a manipulative black widow or a wrongfully accused woman? The outcome hinged on whom the jury would believe. Then came the climax, the moment that would tilt the scales of justice irrevocably. The prosecution called a witness the defense had not anticipated. It was Kayla's own teenage daughter from a previous relationship. The girl, now older and clearly carrying the immense weight of what she knew, took the stand. The air in the courtroom grew thick and still. Under gentle questioning, she recounted the night of the murder, but her story was starkly different from the one her mother had told for years. She described hearing her parents arguing loudly downstairs. Then she heard a single, unmistakable pop. A few moments later, she said, her mother came upstairs. But it wasn't the frantic, panicked mother from the 911 call. She was calm. Too calm. The girl testified that her mother looked at her and her siblings and uttered a line so chilling, so calculated it sucked the air from the room. She told us, "Your dad's been shot. Remember, we didn't see anything." In that single sentence, the entire facade crumbled to dust. The rehearsed grief, the performance for the 911 operator, the years of deception, all of it was exposed by the testimony of her own child. It was the turning point. The moment the mask not only slipped but was ripped away, revealing the cold, manipulative orchestrator beneath. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdict was guilty on all counts for both Koehler Jones and Jim Koehler. Koehler showed no emotion as the words were read, that same unnerving calm she had displayed on the night she helped arrange her husband's murder. At the sentencing hearing, Tony S. family finally had their chance to speak directly to the woman who had destroyed their world. They spoke of Tony's light, his love, the void his absence had left. They spoke of the betrayal, not just of a wife but of a human being who had chosen greed and lust over a family. The judge sentenced both Koehler Jones and Jim Koehler to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a measure of justice, but no sentence could ever truly repair the damage done, nor bring back the man who was so brutally erased from the world he cherished. Sometimes the most dangerous monster isn't the one hiding in the shadows, but the one sleeping right beside you. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe for more.